Joining me live now to break down the figures and discuss how it affects businesses and the economy at large. I have an economist, Audu from our Abuja studios. And in Lagos, I have the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Okay, let me start from home. I'll start with Dr. Yusuf. Now, Doctor, 2.55% year-on-year in real terms for the fourth quarter of 2019. How did this figure come to you?
Thank you very much. Traditionally, over the years, fourth quarter GDP performance has always surpassed that of the first three quarters. This is so because generally the tempo of economic activities, the level of aggregate spending, demand, the velocity of transactions are generally much higher in the fourth quarter of the year. So I think that is what has reflected in the figure that we have seen. And if you also relate this to the year end, I'm talking of the GDP performance for the entire year, which is 2.27%. You can see that there is no significant difference. And what this is showing is that, well, it is good that we are still in positive territory, at least compared to 2016 and the time we had a recession. We are seeing a positive growth, but the growth is still generally very weak. The growth is still generally not very inclusive, and the growth is still generally not actually generating the kind of revenue that we need to drive the economy. You talked in your review about how the non-oil sector of the economy is accounting for about 95% of the GDP. But in terms of productivity, in terms of contribution to our foreign exchange earnings, in terms of contribution to our revenue, the non-oil sector is still very, very weak. So we need to begin to face very quickly the challenges of the non-oil sector of the economy with respect to scaling up the productivity of this sector so that we can have an economy that is much more stable and that is not so much vulnerable to external shocks. These are the kind of indications that these figures are telling us. And we also note that the number of sectors are still in recession. First among them is the trade sector, which is still in recession. It has been contracting over the last 3 or 4 quarters. The second sector still in recession is the real estate. And real estate, as you know, has the potential to create a lot of jobs because of the chain of activities that are involved in real estate, both from construction, supply of raw materials, the plumbers, the architects. So many hands are involved in construction. So we need to begin to look at how we can bring these sectors back. We need to identify the critical variables that have been slowing down this sector so that we can have an economy that is more holistically, healthy.
Okay, Aliyu, I will ask you this question. I'm going to Abuja now. Aliyu, this figure surpasses what the IMF projected for Nigeria, which is 2.1%, and we did 2.55%. What do you make of this?
Yeah, it's a good thing. We are now witnessing increase in production, which is what GDP is all about. Now, you notice that there were some policies that were implemented that discouraged consumption of foreign goods, which is mostly the border closure. Now, what the border closure did was to encourage local production. And that's why we are witnessing an increase in our GDP, because production has gone up. Now, if you look at agriculture, it has also gone up, it's doing better than before. We are now producing our rice. We don't have to wait for foreign rice. As I've always advocated before, that local production is always better for us than importing goods and services from outside. So this is a true evidence of what we are going to witness in the future to come. Now, what we need to do is to policy implement the border closure so that it will become more lasting, so that we will now protect local industries from competition and from dumping and what have you. As you can see, agriculture has increased, manufacturing, services, transportation, and mining as well has increased. So that shows that people are looking inward. And when people are looking inward, that will only encourage production. And that is why the economy is growing, because we are now consuming and producing more of our own goods and services.
Great. DG, I'm going to ask you this question about improving production. I don't know if you agree with Audu Aliyu's submission talking about Nigeria improving production with regards to border closure, and that has also helped stabilize or, well, helped us achieve these positive figures that we see at this time.
Well, the border closure has a dual impact on the economy. For some segments of the manufacturing sector, it has helped and or boosted their production. It has boosted their capacity utilization because the level of smuggling from neighboring countries has reduced. For those in agricultural processing as well, it also has boosted production in the agricultural sector, especially with respect to things like rice, things like vegetable oil, and a number of products like that. And of course, poultry products. So for those range of products, I think the level of production has benefited from the closure of the border because of the reduction in smuggling. And what that is telling us is that most of the smuggling that takes place actually takes place through the land border. But it has also constrained production in some segments of also manufacturing sector, because you have quite a number of them that also export to the neighboring countries, particularly those in the fast-moving consumer product sector. Many of them, their products are already registered on the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, ETLS. The closure of the border had affected them very adversely. And the closure of the border has also affected the trade sector. As I mentioned earlier, trade sector is one of the sectors that are still in recession. And part of the factors that has led to that, of course, is also the closure of the border, because the cross-border transactions is also a very important component of trade. And as you know, the distributive trade sector is a very critical sector of this economy. It accounts for close to 15% of our GDP. So we need to reckon with what is happening in that sector. So there are winners and there are losers as far as the border closure is concerned.
All right, back to Audu now. Audu, like the ICT, agriculture, and manufacturing sectors respectively, these sectors did very well when we break this down, talking about the GDP figures. How do you react to this?
Yes, the last time I was here, I talked about increased credits to the manufacturing sector and the loan-to-deposit ratio. That made banks to give more money to the manufacturing sector. And obviously, I've always advocated that we need to put more money into the economy. We need to support small businesses. Now, this is the resultant effect. When you support businesses and you make money available, Nigerians are very industrial people. And as such, you will witness more activity, you will witness more production. And that's exactly what we are witnessing in the manufacturing sector. Also looking at ICT, Nigeria is quite dependent on ICT. There's a lot of, we're using mobile banking, internet banking. We're moving from analog system to a more digital system. And virtually everybody in Nigeria has a mobile phone. And as such, you notice that there's more investment in ICT infrastructure in the country. And this is leading to growth. We're already discussing about 5G like other countries. So, and as a matter of fact, we are even more advanced in terms of some banking applications than some advanced countries. So all this is stimulating growth. This is why we're witnessing growth in manufacturing, ICT, and services. And as you know, Nigeria has a huge population. Services is not something we shy away from. At some point, Britain was earning majority of its foreign exchange from services, and that is what we should be looking at, because that is a very quick way of earning growth and generating income. Because while services does not require a lot of paperwork, it does not require a lot of processes. It's very short. So with that, if that sector is growing, it can only help the economy. Thank you.
All right, now my next question goes to DG LCCI. DG, you identified some challenges with regards to the trade sector, real estate sector, which at the moment remains in recession. Now, what do you think should be done? We hear of the PEBEC committee coming up with saying a lot of positives with regards to ease of doing business, and even signing an agreement with ICPC to help address challenges along that line. Now, what else? What more are we going to do to improve trade and also harness the positives in the real estate sector?
Well, the real estate sector is one sector whose potentials we have not been able to unlock in the Nigerian economy. There was a recent study by PwC that estimated the capital, what they call debt capital, that has been locked up in real estate to be trillions of naira. So we need to address the issue of mortgage finance all over the world. You don't buy houses cash down or out of pocket. What drives housing and real estate sector is mortgage. So we need to put in place a framework that will ensure a sustainable mortgage finance system in this economy, because you need that kind of funding to be able to support the growth of the real estate sector. We need low-cost funding, single-digit interest rates. We need long-term funding, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years mortgage facility to enable the citizens to buy houses, to own houses. That is a very critical component of transforming the real estate sector. There is also the issue of the cost of building materials. Most of these costs are very high, either because of low domestic production or because of high import duty. These materials are very expensive. So we need to deal with that. We also need to deal with issues of documentation of land titles, perfection of land titles, especially at the state level. This is also making it difficult for us to unlock value in many of the properties that we have. Because if you don't have your titles perfected, it is difficult for you to convert the property into capital. So these are some of the critical things that we need to do to unlock the huge potentials in the real estate sector. There's huge potential for investment. There's also huge potential for job creation.
All right, the Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Muda Yusuf, and Audu, an economist. They're live from Abuja. Thank you for making us really understand the GDP figures, breaking it down and what it means for businesses and for also Nigerians. Thank you very much.